It is currently morning for me. I am living out of my car, if that gives you a good incentive as to not follow in the path that I did in life. But today I wanted to talk about why I think Xanax, just specifically for me at least, but also I would say in general is the hardest drug to quit and the hardest drug to mentally deal with being off of. And as somebody who's been addicted to Oxycontin, heroin, 7-0, cocaine, Adderall, lots of other drugs people consider to be a very addictive or whatever. And let me get into it. So for me, the longest and most consistently persisting addiction I had as a polyaddict, I'm still a drug addict, was Xanax, because unlike opioids or amphetamines, I would get in a cycle where I would take maybe 4 milligrams a day. I really wasn't taking as much as a lot of people that get into it, but to the point where I was fearful for my life if I didn't properly redose and set alarms to wake up at night so that in 6 hours you could take another redose, because you genuinely have lots of fear of dying, because it only takes a couple of weeks of being on Xanax for the withdrawal to cause a seizure. And the withdrawal also causes a lot of mental paranoia and delusion. So at the time, I was also taking a lot of psychedelic drugs and shit, which definitely also had an influence on this, but I wasn't really crazy losing complete sanity until Xanax withdrawal. And I thought the Illuminati was after me. I thought the feds were after me, which they were, because I was a really dumb kid that had a large Telegram page, if you know what I mean. And I was creating all of these insane ideas about DMT and about ancient Hebrewism and ancient Greece, and I wrote philosophy novels. I wrote a manifesto of my own ideas. I tried to create a religion at one point, which actually had a weird small cult following of 12 kids that were hella into my idealism and shit, because they were also on drugs and crazy. But none of that really developed until I had the paranoia from Xanax withdrawal and that constant feeling of I need to make sure that I have this drug in my body so that I don't die. And I've been on heroin, which people consider to be more addictive than Xanax generally, and I've even slammed heroin. I mostly smoked it, but I slammed it 3 or 4 times, and that fear is not the same. Heroin withdrawal feels like you're very uncomfortable in your body, and you're very out of it and tired, but you can't sleep, and it feels very like you feel all of the pain and soreness that your body would normally like put, or like you would barely feel. Like it feels like you can feel all your joints and your bones moving inside of your body. It's rough, and you also get sick. If any of you watching have ever had COVID, it actually feels pretty similar to having COVID. Like your body just feels like shit. You are like coughing up fucking lots of fluid, and it's just not fun. But there isn't a feeling of impending doom if you don't get more. Whereas with Xanax, that really is the case. And that's not the only reason for me specifically why Xanax, I think, was worse. When I would do cocaine or heroin, I would be completely not able to act sober. I couldn't like do a fucking gainer line of coke and like then shoot up some heroin and then like seem sober around my peers and my parents and that people that cared about me, but with Xanax I totally could. Sometimes I think they would notice something was wrong with me, but they didn't understand, like, oh, he's on hardcore drugs right now. Like, I would sometimes, very not often, and mostly when I would combine Xanax with alcohol, I would black out and like just pass out on a couch or some shit, and they would be like, what the fuck? And also Xanax makes you hiccup. And so I would get the hiccups all the time, and they would be like, why the fuck is this kid like hiccuping all the time? But they didn't know that I was like really fucked up for the most part. I would my favorite drug combination to this day in terms of like what I want and crave is combining Adderall with Xanax and maybe like Oxycontin, like at night or something. But I was mainly addicted to Xanax, even though I was doing all these other drugs. I was very addicted to Adderall, more so than I ever was to cocaine. But it was never like I was fiending really hard for it or anything, and the withdrawal was never that crazy for me. I have ADHD, so for me it was almost like a necessity to get shit done because I was so stressed out and I was becoming an adult and I didn't know how to take care of myself. But yeah, so I'm gonna talk about amphetamines a little bit. Let me just take a little pipe rip. Got some good ass Northern California weed. So, methamphetamine is the most chemically addictive drug when it comes to dopamine, where like heroin and cocaine, you know, are like between 500 to 900 units of dopamine. I don't know what the neuron measurement is or whatever, but I know that it counts in units. Methamphetamine is like 2,200. So I never did meth. I don't think I ever even did meth on accident because I was very like adamant about testing my drugs, even though I was doing so many of them. So I'm not speaking for methamphetamine. I've seen so many meth addicts just completely ruin their life and never be able to like live a normal life again after they got addicted to meth. Like they wouldn't be able to fucking do normal things anymore. But Adderall and cocaine for me as somebody with ADHD was just not even what I was looking for in a high. It was just if I was really barred out, I like to do coke and watch stupid movies and shit. And if I was on Adderall, I was getting a bunch of shit done. And that was why I was addicted to Adderall, if anything. It wasn't the stimulant effects. And a lot of people like to get very sexual on stimulants, but I just, it might be because I have ADHD, I just never was like that. 2CB, on the other hand, very much sexualizes. If you have ADHD and you're looking for a drug that feels really good when you're being sexual or whatever, 2CB is the way to go. Sorry, I got a notification. But yeah. And so, because Xanax is so relieving and just like very easy to act somewhat normal, and a lot of people will black out on Xanax, but I wasn't really that type of addict. I would really just take the amount that I needed to sleep and the amount that I needed to act socially well during the day, and that was really why I was addicted to it. And so when I had traveled during this time frame in my life where I was addicted to Xanax for like 2.5 years off and on, I would swallow condoms full of crushed up Pharmapram Xanax bars. If you know what Pharmapram is, if you're a Xanax addict, it's a Mexican made Xanax that's a lot cheaper than most other prescriptions you can find, and it's just as strong and just as good. And so I would crush a bunch of those fuckers, like 20 of them, into a condom, and I would usually swallow at least 2 condoms and dig it out of my shit, so that I would have Xanax for wherever I was going, because if I didn't, I would die. And when I would travel, I wouldn't bring any other drugs other than Xanax and LSD. I wouldn't risk bringing a bunch of drugs that are very easily detectable, and I was always very nervous about a condom exploding inside my stomach, but even more so, I was afraid of dying to benzo withdrawal. So I never brought any opioids on a plane ever in my life. I never brought any opioids on even a road trip for the most part. I've definitely done some opioids on a train before, but that's a different story for a different day. But I gotta tell that story. But anyways, I don't think I did a very good job of explaining this, but I hope that I did at least somewhat of a job of explaining why I think Xanax is more addictive. I was on Xanax for a lot longer of a period of time than I was any other drug. Codeine and Oxycontin is much more expensive than Xanax is, and so when I didn't have the money to get all the other drugs I liked, my base 2 drugs were weed and Xanax, and I would make sure at all times I at least had those 2 drugs. And then I would add Adderall to the mix next if I had enough money for it, and then I would add Oxycontin to the mix. And then when I got addicted to codeine and Oxycontin in the summer of 2023, I started getting into heroin and opium and these other more addictive opiates than codeine or oxy. Sethno, in my opinion, is just as strong as oxy is. But yeah, the withdrawal from opiates sucks and the cravings are crazy. But I'll tell you what, as somebody that has relapsed on 7-0 a couple of times and done heroin in the past and done all these other opioids, it was 10 times easier to get through the withdrawal than it was on Xanax. The paranoia you feel and the just delusion that comes with not having it, and the true fear that you have of an impending, like, if you ever run out, you're gonna die. And that, to me, was why Xanax was a much more dangerous and addictive drug for me than any other drug I've tried, as somebody that's basically done everything under the book other than methamphetamine. Please leave a like if you enjoyed. I don't know, fucking this shit's pretty stupid, but I don't have anything to do right now anyways, so